The Russian army and Wagner's mercenaries begin to mutiny. Moscow, June 23, 2023. The situation in Russia deepens when a prominent mercenary group, known as Wagner, begins to rebel against the Russian forces. This group was previously known as troops loyal to the Russian government, but now the situation is reversed. This incident began when the Wagner Army troops stationed in Russia's eastern border region suddenly refused orders from their commanders. This force consists of mercenaries who are often hired by Russia to carry out covert missions abroad. Members of Wagner's army, previously seen as a force loyal to Russia, suddenly decide to rebel and oppose the government. They allege abuse of power and corruption among top Russian military officials. The Russian government's reaction to the uprising is not yet clear. Meanwhile, Wagner's army group has taken over several strategic military outposts in a number of areas, including near the Ukrainian border. This uprising caused great concern among the Russian government and neighboring countries. Many fear that this act of rebellion could trigger further regional tensions. Wagner's soldiers have previously been involved in conflicts in Syria and Ukraine, where they have been linked to controversial military actions. Now, by defecting from the Russian government, they are becoming a real threat to stability and security in the region. The Russian authorities are making efforts to best resolve this situation. The government is in communication with rebel groups in an effort to resolve this conflict peacefully and avoid a worse escalation. The international community is closely monitoring the latest developments in Russia. However, this Wagner Army mutiny could have a significant impact on regional geopolitics and stability in the region. Further developments in this crisis are yet to be awaited, and the world is waiting to see what steps the Russian government will take to address this increasingly tense situation. Moscow, June 23, 2023. After days of tension and power struggle in Russia, the Russian army and Wagner mercenaries finally reached an armistice agreement after a series of intensive negotiations. This agreement provides hope for a peaceful resolution of the increasingly widespread conflict. Rebel Wagner Army troops had previously taken control of a number of strategic military outposts in Russia's eastern border region. However, through government mediation and diplomatic efforts, the two sides managed to reach an agreement to end the fighting and seek a more comprehensive solution. According to the official statement issued by the Russian government, this agreement covers various important points. First, Wagner Army troops will return the military outposts they have controlled to the control of the Russian government. In addition, the Russian government agreed to examine the demands of rebel groups for alleged corruption and abuse of power. This agreement also involves a commitment from both parties to continue dialogue and negotiations in order to find a long-term solution that can overcome tensions and restore stability in Russia. The Russian government expressed its readiness to discuss and act on any demands deemed legitimate by the Wagner Army. Meanwhile, the international community welcomed the news of this ceasefire agreement. International organizations and neighboring countries hope that this conflict can be resolved peacefully and avoid a more serious escalation. However, some analysts warn that this agreement still needs to be followed by concrete steps to maintain long-term stability in Russia. They stressed the importance of improving military governance and fighting corruption to avoid similar conflicts in the future. In the coming weeks, the world will be watching the developments in Russia closely. The presence of the Wagner Army, which was originally loyal to the Russian government, but then rebelled, has created new uncertainties in regional geopolitics. Now, with the ceasefire reached, the hope is that further negotiations can bring greater stability and avoid the possibility of a wider conflict.
Tel 101.